Debbie and I have one granddaughter and three grandsons. And our granddaughter is in seventh grade up in southeast Kansas, in a little bitty town with a little bitty school. And she's begun running track. And the girl is fast. We're going to get to go up there in a couple of days and watch her compete in a track meet. And I'm excited to do that. I love getting to see my grandkids in operation. There's a joy. Well, you got to be probably an old person to be able to say, yeah, I get that. Watching my kids and my grandkids grow up and thrive, it's one of the greatest joys of my life. As a matter of fact, I can't think of anything, any experience in my life that gives me as much joy as that. I think it's supposed to be that way. We get to go to Mountain Home, Idaho next week and see our middle daughter and her family, two boys, 5 and 7 years old, that are an absolute, they're a cross between Abbott and Costello and a demolition derby. They're a hoot, and I'm ready to see them. Lots of miles separate us, but boy, I'm so grateful for like FaceTime and being able to see them, and now being able to noogie them down. I'm looking forward to it because of the joy that it gives me as a dad and a grandpa. John writes about this in 3 John. He says, this is in verse 2, which we've already talked about. Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. It gives me great joy when some believers, it gave me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. Well, there are a few things in there that are worth us pausing and thinking about. First of all, John was not afraid to noogie them up, that's just my terminology for loving on them. Well, I think what he said is very powerful. It gave me great joy when some believers came and they testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling me how you continue to walk in it. That's what you want to hear. And there's a very powerful thing when somebody else tells me about that. I had terrific experience a few days ago where a guy knows my youngest daughter from her Bible college time. They were in Bible college together, and he just said, I didn't know her well, but boy, she was awesome. Nothing could give me that kind of joy when I hear from other people about what my girls are doing in their careers. I float. I'm just walking on air, and I'm grateful that I had something to do with that. But I'm not naive. I realize in fact, when I have the chance to talk to and interact with young guys, especially single guys, in Bible college, you're at the front end of their ministry career. I love being able to tell them, you guys have got to do what I did. You have got to marry way over your head. My friend Kevin Oder says, you got to outkick your coverage. And I did. I'm grateful beyond my ability to tell you for how incredible these 3 now women, but when they were little girls, how incredibly their mom raised them. I was out raising everybody else's kids. trying to build a reputation and a ministry. And man, if I could go back in time, I would kick myself. Can't do that. Can't go back. There's no rewind button. But I'm telling you, from when I shifted into family ministry, I realized, okay, I've got to, my family has to be the most important family in the church. I want to push a pause button here on what we're saying in 3 John, and I want to talk to you as a member of your church. I don't know whether you've got an old guy as your senior minister and lead guy, or a middle age, or a young guy. I don't, and in a way it doesn't matter, because I'm going to tell you, whatever demographic they fall into, your voice in their life is important. And I believe that one of the messages that ought to be, needs to be, must be spoken into the life of ministers and pastors all over is, there is no family in this church as important as your family. Treat them as though there's no family in this church as important as your family. Or do they have to make sacrifices in order for you to shepherd the flock? Well, yeah. But, you know, I came to the conclusion, I realized with the help of a friend, back when back in the day when I was out there trying to build a reputation and make a great ministry and be a fabulous youth minister, a friend more mature than I said, you need to think about that, and said, when you stand before Jesus, you think he's going to, first of all, he's going to say, how many camps did you get invited to? How many talks did you give? How many kids were in your youth group? How many kids did you take to Worlds of Fun and Six Flags? I don't think so. I think what he's going to ask is, did you love your wife the way I love the church? Did you love your kids and you lay down your life for them? Did they learn how to love Jesus by how you loved them? That rocked my world, and it set me up for a much different, and thank you, God, better way of living my life and conducting ministry, to set it in the real context of what real life is really all about. Okay. John's using family language, and if you don't know it yet, something you need to know about me is I am passionate about healthy families and helping families become healthy. This is one of the driving philosophical forces in my life, and I believe that the Bible gives us every reason we need to put this health of the family in its proper position in terms of the hierarchy of priorities in life. Okay. It gave me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth. Now, second thing here. First thing is, you need to talk to your minister or pastor. And I don't care whether they're your senior guy or your youth guy, administrative guy who takes care of the lawn. I don't know if they're one of your ministers. Gosh, Focus on the Family started this, more than a decade ago, about October being Pastor Appreciation Month. I think that's great. I don't know when you're going to listen to this, but this ought to be Pastor Appreciation Month also. Pray for them. Pray for their family. Encourage them. And so, there you go. Sorry, it just happens sometimes. I get overwhelmed by my passion for it. But John says, some believers, he doesn't identify who, came and they bore testimony about the folks in this church. You need to know you have a reputation. People notice. They notice if you're living well, and they notice if you're living not well. People notice. The point is not to do everything you can to make sure you look as good as you should. That is self-defeating. It won't work. It breaks with God's design, because God's design is about you being authentic, transparent, being real. You take your mask off and show who you really are. But who you really are has established a reputation. I guess what I want to suggest is, knowing that that's reality, would it be a good idea to focus on how do I honestly develop a good reputation? I would love to have the reputation that these people had, these unnamed children of the Apostle John. These are not his biological children, okay? These are his spiritual offspring, the family that he holds dear, that he wrote this letter to. They testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it. He didn't say, testify to, boy, you guys have this fabulous building with a family life center. Your parking is incredible. You got a coffee shop. If you can pull that off, do all of that. It's worth it, okay? That's not what, number one, at this point in time in history, there were no church houses. There were house churches. Okay, so that kind of doesn't apply, except sometimes in our world, oh yeah, I go to such and such church. Yeah, I think didn't we have more than 1,000 for Easter this year? That's great. That thrills me that 1,000 people, and a lot of them, this was maybe the only time in the year they're going to show up at church, but if you guys did it right, they got to hear the story of Christ and redemption and new life, and that makes me excited. But see, I don't really care about, with me, your reputation is not about how big your church is that you go to or you minister in, or I know the guy who's the lead guy at that huge mega church. So, what impresses me, and I don't know that God is ever impressed, but what impressed John and gave him great joy was hearing that these people in whom he had invested his life, his time, and effort, their reputation was about how they lived and walked in the truth, that they were faithful to the truth and they continue to walk in it. I don't know what they'll put on my headstone. Well, actually, I don't intend to have a headstone. I'm not joking about this. People think I am. I'm not joking. I told Debbie, cremate me, okay? When you have a memorial, just hold a picture of me up, and that's enough. If I was in a casket, I wouldn't be there. You're not going to have, my biodegradable form in that casket, so cremate me. Don't go to all the other expenses, and then get yourself over to Tulsa, and when you finally get the insurance money, buy a convertible. My preference is a Miata. And drive down 61st Street And when you drive past, I think it's hole number 6 at Southern Hills, there's a green that's right across the fence from the street. Let my ashes go. I don't know where they're going to go, or, but they're very sanitary. Let them go. Now, why did I tell you that? Well, because I don't think I'm going to have a headstone, but I do want to be remembered. I want to be remembered, not because, that guy wrote a book, or that guy was, he worked at this mega huge church, or he did this thing on the internet, or he was a great counselor, or what. Here's the one word I'm most interested in. That when people think of me after my passing, they will say, he was faithful. I intend to be faithful to my wife, faithful to my calling, faithful to the truth. I'm at 16 minutes, and I hate it when this happens, but I got carried away. My challenge is, what do you want on your epitaph? You don't have to take the same one I had, but your reputation for faithfulness to the truth. What do you think? See you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.